Hey everybody, Jay Super Awesome here. I'd like to welcome you all to episode number 4 of my 31 Days of Horror in October. In this video, I will be showing you everything I watched from October 18th through October 24th. Let's have a look. October 18th, 2020, I watched The Pale Door. And this one is a Western horror witch movie, and I really like this concept. We have had cowboys versus aliens, and we have had cowboys versus zombies before, but as far as I know, we haven't ever had cowboys facing off against witches. For the most part, I did enjoy this movie, even though I feel like it had some pacing issues. It is a little bit of a slow burn, but I didn't mind it all that much because this movie does a pretty decent job with developing the characters. I was interested in these characters and invested in the storyline, even though just when things would start to pick up and get really interesting, the movie would slow back down again. It's not something that bothered me all that much, but it is something that I noticed. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be people out there that's going to chew this one up and spit it out like a worn out piece of chewing tobacco. The storyline for this one is we have two brothers. The oldest is Duncan and his younger brother is Truman. They are pretty close and at an early age experienced a great deal of tragedy when their parents were killed. Now grown up, Duncan has become a leader of a loyal group of outlaws who will do anything for him. Duncan wants nothing more in life but to see his younger brother succeed and be successful in life, and closely watches over him. Despite his better judgment, Duncan allows his younger brother Truman to come along for a train robbery as a lookout. Of course, Truman gets put into a situation of either shooting a girl or letting her go. Due to his good nature, he lets her go. And wouldn't you know it, shortly after, she ends up shooting his brother, leaving Duncan badly wounded. Also, as if things couldn't get any worse for the group, instead of getting a chest full of money, they get a chest with a girl locked inside instead, who convinces the group of outlaws that they will be rewarded for her rescue and that there would be help for their badly wounded friend. They take her up on her offer and cross a threshold into a town full of cool-looking evil witches. We do actually get a short backstory on the witches. Overall, myself personally, I did enjoy this movie and I would watch it again. October 19th, 2020, I watched Hellraiser 3: Hell on Earth. And I have always been a big fan of this movie. I really like how it feels completely different from the first two movies. And the idea of hell on earth sounds amazing, even though it does sound much more grand and apocalyptic than what this movie is able to deliver on. This time around, the main character is a struggling reporter named Joey, who is desperately searching for her first big story. While at the hospital, the paramedics rush in a patient who has chains with hooks sticking out of their skin. Joey meets Terry, and after a little convincing, Terry tells Joey that the incident happened at her boyfriend JP Monroe's nightclub. JP Monroe is this love them and leave them type dude who has an eye for strange and unusual art, and just so happens to be the owner of a statue from hell that has imprisoned Pinhead, leader of the Cenobites. An agreement is made between JP Monroe and Pinhead, and JP Monroe starts to lure victims in for Pinhead so he can regain his strength. It's a very similar setup as the first two movies, where we have people being sacrificed to restore Frank and Julia. Getting back to Joey, she is troubled with dreams about her father in the war, and these dreams ultimately escalate to her meeting Captain Elliot Spencer, who is the human form of Pinhead. He has a plan that will send Pinhead back to hell once and for all. And that's about as far as I'm going to go with the story for this one. I did want to mention that we do get some new Cenobites in this one, handmade as Pinhead puts it, a shadow of his former troops. I thought the new Cenobites were cool in this one. Of course, I do like the original Cenobites better, but after all, this is the third movie, and I can understand they were trying to do something new and fresh with it. Overall, I really did enjoy Hellraiser 3: Hell on Earth, and I really do like the Motorhead song, Hellraiser, that plays with the ending credits. I also do like Ozzy Osbourne's version, but I do prefer the Motorhead version better. Overall, I really did enjoy Hellraiser 3: Hell on Earth. October 20th, 2020, I watched One Dark Night. And this is another one I haven't watched since the VHS days, and overall I did enjoy this movie, but I did find it to be a little tame. It was directed by Tom McLoughlin, who was the director for Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. And the number one thing that stood out to me about this movie is it had really good lighting and special effects. Towards the end of the movie, we get some really good special effects on the corpses with some really colorful lighting effects, so I really enjoyed that. A lot of the movie takes place at a mausoleum, so I thought that was really cool. The story for this one is we have Olivia, who has just found out that her father has passed away under some very strange circumstances. We find out that growing up, she was never allowed to be around her father because he kept her away. Olivia is being supported through this troubling set of circumstances by her husband, Alan, played by Adam West. She finds out from a mysterious man that her father had been a part of a cult for some time. She learns that her father had psychic abilities and could move things with his mind and could also use his power to drain the life out of people through electricity coming from his fingers. And then we have Meg Tilly's character, Julie, who, for no other reason than to prove to her boyfriend that she can, wants to join a snotty group of mean girls called the Sisters. The leader of this group is none other than Julie's boyfriend's ex-girlfriend, and of course, she isn't going to make it easy and has come up with the ultimate idea for a hazing prank. Julie agrees to spend the night in the mausoleum. Of course, the sisters plan to break into the mausoleum later on to give Julie the scare of her life. They have also slipped her some drugs to intensify the scare. And of course, it just so happens to be the very same mausoleum that Olivia's psychic, electric finger and eye, life-draining father had been laid to rest in that very same day. And all of the activity has awakened the evil energy inside Carl Reimer's corpse. And I'm going to leave it at that. I had fun with this one. I thought it was pretty decent. Wednesday, October 21st, 2020, Wild Eye Wednesday, I watched One Night in October. One town, one night, endless horror. On the eve of Halloween, strange things are happening to the residents of a suburban town, who are tormented by a series of murderous characters, both real and supernatural. As their tales intertwine, they weave together a haunting, unescapable night of terror. This was my second time watching this movie, and I thought it was pretty decent. The storyline is set up very similar to something like Trick or Treat, where we have one town and many different horrors happening to different people. So it is switching back and forth between everything that's going on, and I really like that because it seemed to keep the movie moving. We have a group of people who are in a cornfield, and they have been told to leave. They get stranded because their car won't start. Half of the group has decided to go back to the farmhouse for help. They are all being stalked by a scarecrow killer, and we do get some backstory on the scarecrow, so this one was set up like a slasher. We also have a story about a girl and a detective who have a strange relationship. They seem to want to be together, but something is keeping them apart, and we do find out what that is, and this one had a supernatural vibe to it. And finally, we have a girl that is new to the neighborhood and has a lot of excitement for Halloween, and has went to the extreme to decorate her yard. Of course, this gets the attention of some of her neighbors, so this segment plays out like a home invasion slasher. Overall, I really did enjoy watching One Night in October. I thought it had a really awesome Halloween vibe throughout each segment. I thought the storylines were interesting and had some really neat twists and turns throughout. And I did notice a common theme with the conclusion with each storyline. Of course, I'm not going to say what that was. If you are interested, you will have to watch and find out for yourself. October 22nd, 2020, I watched Seed of Chucky. And it had been a really long time since I had watched this movie, and I know that this one is notoriously hated among horror fans, but I had an absolute blast watching this movie. In fact, I had to pause the movie a few times because I was laughing so hard. I had never had an issue with them adding comedy to the Chucky movies. Obviously, they ramped up the comedy for Bride and Seed, and I didn't mind that at all. After all, these are killer doll movies, and I had never really taken them all that serious in the first place. So I didn't mind the comedy. My biggest issue with this one is them adding a third doll to the storyline, the Glenn or Glenda, whatever it's feeling like at the moment. This doll character is pretty far out there to say the least, but I didn't mind it all that much this time around. I guess I was more prepared for it. I thought it was really interesting that the real life Jennifer Tilly was a character in this movie, considering the character she played in the previous movie, Bride of Chucky, where ultimately she ends up becoming the Tiffany doll, but she was a different character altogether. And that probably sounds more confusing than it actually is. But anyway, it is pretty strange, and I'm not really for sure that it works. But with that being said, I thought she did a great job playing both parts, and I love that she is the voice of Tiffany. And the thought of Tiffany wanting to put her soul into Jennifer Tilly's body, and Chucky put his soul into Redman, so then that they could consume, so they can put Glenn or Glenda's soul into the baby. That's next level stuff. I wish I could think of stuff that awesome. With that being said, this is still my least favorite of the franchise, and this is probably not going to be a popular opinion, but I do love this movie and I had a blast watching it. October 23rd, 2020, I watched The Vampire Lovers, and I thought this movie was great. I have watched it several times over the years, and it still holds up. There's so much to like about it. It has a fantastic gothic setting with the mansions and castles and the European countryside, a cemetery covered in fog. We also have an excellent cast of characters with very strong acting performances. Of course, Peter Cushing will always be a standout in any film that he is in, but Ingrid Pitt as Carmela and Marcella was nothing short of amazing in this movie. A simple description of the storyline for this one is we have Carmela, who also goes by Marcella, and she is basically running a scam. She will visit these different rich families and then create a tragic story which ends up leading her to getting to stay with the family. She is a vampire with lesbian tendencies, so she will slowly drain the life of her female victims. She is also not against turning a man and bending him to her will as she sees fit. That's the basic setup for this movie. There's also some backstory with the opening of the movie that also comes to play with the ending of the film. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie, and it gets a high recommendation, especially if you are a fan of vampire films. It was just fascinating to see Carmela trick her way into these families' lives and watch her tear their world apart. Great stuff. October 24th, 2020, I watched The Curse of Halloween Jack, and I thought this was an okay slasher movie. I like this one a little better than I did the first movie. I did the first movie last year for my 31 Days of Horror, so I thought it was only fitting that I did the second movie this year. After a brutal massacre of the townsfolk by the legendary killer Halloween Jack on October 31st, the new mayor of Dunwich bans all future Halloween celebrations. 2 years after the murders, a group of rebellious youngsters decide to defy the powers that be and organize their own private Halloween party. Little do they know, in a woodland nearby, a cult known as the Lords of Samhain are making a blood sacrifice to resurrect the long-dead Halloween Jack. When the infamous killer returns to life, the cult and the partying teens get a whole lot more than they bargained for. And that does actually sum up the story pretty well. I will say that there is a really good twist at the end of the movie that I did enjoy. I thought it had a good setup and was well done. For the most part, I did like the characters in this movie much better than the first, actually. I absolutely love the Halloween Jack Scarecrow killer. He looks really cool, and he gives us some pretty decent kills. We have another scene in this movie, much like the first movie, where we have a big group of people, and Halloween Jack goes on a killing rampage and starts slaughtering them. What more could you really ask for with a low-budget slasher movie? Overall, I did enjoy this one, and I'm going to recommend it if you have seen the first Halloween Jack movie and you enjoyed it, or if you are a fan of low-budget slasher movies. Okay, so there you have it. This has been episode number 4 of my 31 Days of Horror in October. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know what you think about the video. Be sure to hit the notification bell for more J Super Awesome videos. And as always, I would like to thank you all for watching.